68 years of life and a betrayal I never saw coming. My own son, the boy I raised from nothing, looked me straight in the eye and lied to me. That pain still sits heavy in my chest, like shrapnel you never quite dig out. But what happened next? Well, let's just say sometimes the old dog still has some bite left. My name is Kenny Davis. I'm 68, been retired from the construction business for 3 years now, and I live here in Phoenix, Arizona. Spent 40 years building Davis Construction from a beat-up truck and a toolbox into something real. Lost my business partner and best friend Vincent 6 years back to cancer. Since then, it's been me, my memories, and this house Vincent and I built with our own hands back in 1982. May 15th started like any other day. I was up at 600 minus old military habits die hard, made my coffee black, same as always, and sat on the back patio looking out at the desert. Been doing that for years now, watching the sun come up over the mountains. It's peaceful out here, gives a man time to think. I was thinking about my son Bradley that morning. He's 45 now. Works as some hotshot insurance executive downtown, married to Carolyn. They got my granddaughter Martha. She's 17 and sharp as a tack. Wants to be a doctor. That kid's got more sense than her parents combined, if you ask me. Bradley used to come by regular when Vincent was still alive. We'd work on projects together, talk about the business, normal father-son stuff. But these last few years, since he got that fancy promotion, visits got fewer and farther between. Always too busy, always some excuse. I picked up my phone around 8 a.m. and called him. "Hey, Dad," he answered, sounding rushed like always, morning sun. "Just wanted to remind you it's my birthday today." There was this pause, the kind that tells you everything. "Oh, right, Dad, happy birthday. Listen, I was going to call you later about that. I was thinking maybe we could grab dinner tonight. Been a while since we talked properly." Another pause. "Dad, I'd love to, but I got this emergency client situation. Big corporate account threatened to pull out. I'm flying to Denver this afternoon. Won't be back until tomorrow night." Something about the way he said it didn't sit right. Bradley's always been good at talking. Comes with the insurance game, I guess. But I've been around long enough to know when someone's feeding me a line. "That's too bad, son. Maybe this weekend then." "Yeah, absolutely. We'll do something nice. Bring a cake. I gotta run, Dad. Love you." And just like that, he was gone. I sat there holding the phone, feeling older than my 68 years. Vincent used to tell me, "Kenny, you raised a good boy. Sometimes good boys just lose their way for a while." Maybe Vincent was right, maybe not. See, Vincent and I started our partnership back in 1985 when I was 43. He was the one with the business sense. I was the one who knew how to build. Together, we turned Davis Construction into something bigger than either of us could have managed alone. We built half of North Scottsdale, put our names on shopping centers, office buildings, residential developments. When Vincent died, he left me everything. His share of the company, his property investments, his stake in all those buildings we'd put up over the years. Bradley knew about some of it, but not all of it. Not the scope of what his old man actually owned. Around 5 p.m., I was getting restless. Wasn't planning to sit home feeling sorry for myself on my birthday. I put on my good shirt, the blue one Carolyn got me last Christmas, and decided to head over to the American Legion Post. Figure I'd have a beer with the guys, maybe play some pool. The Legion Post is about 15 minutes from my house, right off Camelback Road. Been going there since I moved to Phoenix in 1979. It's where us old-timers go to shoot the breeze, complain about politics, and remember when things made sense. Most of us served back in the early 70s when everything was going to hell in Southeast Asia. I did my time in 73 and 74, came home different than when I left. Like most of us did. I was pulling into the parking lot when I saw it. Bradley's silver BMW, the one with the custom plates that say Insure One. My stomach dropped like a stone. What the hell was my son's car doing at the Legion when he was supposed to be on a plane to Denver? I parked across the street and sat there for a minute trying to make sense of it. Maybe he stopped by looking for me before his flight. Maybe there was some explanation that made sense, but deep down, I already knew. After 68 years and serving in a war zone, you develop pretty good instincts about when something's wrong. I walked into the Legion slow and careful. The place was packed for a Tuesday night, guys from all the wars hanging out like we do. Cigarette smoke mixed with the smell of beer and old leather. The jukebox was playing some Merle Haggard, and the pool table was busy with the usual crowd trying to hustle each other out of beer money. And there, at the big round table in the back corner, was Bradley, not in Denver, not in some emergency meeting. Sitting right there with Carolyn, her mother Helen, and my granddaughter Martha. They had balloons on the table, one of those fancy store-bought cakes. Martha was taking pictures with her phone while everyone sang happy birthday to Carolyn. My son was smiling bigger than I'd seen in years, raising a beer like he didn't have a care in the world. I stood there by the door watching my family celebrate without me. on my birthday, after my son lied straight to my face about being in Denver. Preston Muller, my old army buddy, spotted me first. "Hey Kenny, didn't expect to see you tonight. Come join us for a beer." Preston's voice carried across the room. Bradley's head snapped up, and his face went white when he saw me standing there. The whole table went quiet. Carolyn looked confused. Helen just stared. Only Martha smiled and waved. "Grandpa, what are you doing here?" I walked over slow, keeping my face neutral. Learned that trick in the service. Never let them see you sweat. Just came by for a birthday drink. Didn't expect to find you folks here. Bradley stood up so fast he nearly knocked over his chair. "Dad, I can explain. The flight got delayed, and we decided to grab dinner while we waited. That right?" I looked at the cake, the balloons, the presents stacked on the table. Looks more like a birthday party to me. Martha, bless her heart, didn't know when to keep quiet. "It's Mom's 45th birthday, Grandpa. Dad said you had other plans tonight." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Other plans. My own son told his family I had other plans on my birthday rather than admit he didn't want to spend it with his old man. Well, I said, keeping my voice steady, "Happy birthday, Carolyn. Hope it's everything you wanted." I turned to Martha. "Sweetheart, why don't you come visit your grandfather this weekend?" "I'd like that, of course, Grandpa." "Are you okay? You look upset." "I'm fine, honey. Just surprised to see everyone here when your daddy's supposed to be in Denver." I looked straight at Bradley. Emergency client situation, wasn't it? Bradley's face was red now, sweat beading on his forehead. "Dad, please, not here." "You're right, not here." I reached into my wallet and pulled out a $20, set it on the table. "Drinks are on me. Enjoy your party." I walked out without another word, my hands shaking with anger I hadn't felt since my combat days. But this wasn't enemy fire or incoming mortars. This was my own son treating me like I was some burden he needed to manage. I drove around for an hour trying to cool off. Ended up at Steel Indian School Park sitting on a bench watching kids play on the playground. Made me think about Bradley when he was little. How proud I was watching him learn to ride a bike, graduate high school, get that first job. When did things change? When did I become someone he was ashamed of? I pulled out my phone and did something I probably should have done years ago. I called Eugene Foster, my lawyer friend from the VFW. Eugene and I served together in '73, came home together, built our lives here in Phoenix. He knows me better than anyone. "Kenny, what's wrong? You sound terrible." I told him everything. The lie, the party, the years of excuses and missed visits. Eugene listened without interrupting, the way good soldiers do. "You know what really gets me, Eugene? It's not just the lying, it's that he's ashamed of me, ashamed of where he comes from. I built that boy's life from nothing, and now I'm some embarrassment he has to manage." "Kenny, you remember what we used to say back in the day? Don't get mad, get smart. You still got all those business records Vincent left you. The property deeds? That's when it hit me. What Eugene was getting at. See, when Vincent died, he left me his half of everything we'd built together. Properties, investments, contracts. Bradley knew about some of it, but not all of it. Not the building downtown where his insurance firm rents office space. Not the construction loan documents I still held on half the developments in Scottsdale. Eugene, you thinking what I think you're thinking. I'm thinking your boy needs a reminder about where his bread gets buttered. And I'm thinking you got more cards to play than he knows." The next morning I was up early again, but this time with purpose. I spent 2 hours going through Vincent's files, documents we'd stored in the old safe in my garage, property deeds, partnership agreements, loan documents. Vincent was meticulous about paperwork, kept everything organized in manila folders with his neat handwriting on the tabs. There it was in black and white. The lease agreement for the Meridian Tower downtown, 20 floors of offices including the insurance firm where Bradley worked. Rent collected monthly by Davis Properties, that's Vincent and me. Current rate $25,000 per month for their floor alone. I found the construction contracts too. 3 major residential developments in North Scottsdale, all financed through loans backed by Davis Construction. 2 shopping centers in Tempe, a medical complex in Chandler. Properties worth millions, generating steady income that Bradley had no idea came from his old man's business empire. Vincent had been smart about keeping things quiet. He never wanted to be flashy, never wanted people knowing how much we actually owned. "Let them think we're just contractors with hammers," he used to say. "They don't need to know we own the whole damn neighborhood." I loaded everything into a manila folder and drove downtown to Bradley's office building. The Meridian Tower, all glass and steel, rising 20 stories into the Arizona sky. Vincent and I had built this place back in 1994. Took us 8 months working through that brutal summer heat. I walked into the lobby like I owned the place, which as it turned out, I kind of did. "Good morning," I told the security guard. "I'm here to see Bradley Davis. Tell him his father's here." The young woman at the reception desk looked nervous. "Do you have an appointment, sir?" No, but I own this building. Figure that counts for something. Her eyes went wide. You're Mr. Davis, the property owner. That's right, Kenny Davis, Davis Construction. Now how about you call my son? Bradley came down in about 5 minutes, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Dad, what are you doing here? People are staring. Good, let them stare. We need to talk. I looked around the fancy lobby with its marble floors and modern art. Nice place. You know, Vincent and I built this back in '94. Took us 8 months, worked through that summer heat. Your rent check comes to me every month. Bradley's face went pale. What are you talking about? I'm talking about you not knowing nearly as much about your old man as you think. Come on, let's go upstairs. I want to see this fancy office you're so proud of. We rode the elevator in silence. Bradley's office was on the 15th floor, corner suite with big windows looking out over the city. Real impressive setup for a kid who used to help me carry lumber when he was 10 years old. Sit down, son. We're going to have a conversation. I pulled out the folder I'd prepared that morning, property deeds, construction contracts, financial statements. You know what this is? Bradley flipped through the papers, his face getting whiter by the page. These are property records, construction loans. What does this have to do with anything? It has to do with you thinking your old man is some washed-up contractor you can lie to and ignore. See, when Vincent died, he left me his share of everything we built. That includes this building, 3 others downtown, and about 40% of the commercial development in North Scottsdale. I watched my son's face as reality sank in. The insurance firm you work for? They pay me $25,000 a month in rent. The parking garage where you park that fancy BMW? Mine. The coffee shop downstairs where you meet your clients? I own that too. Bradley set the papers down with shaking hands. Dad, I had no idea. No, you didn't, because you never asked. You just assumed your old man was some broken-down veteran living on Social Security. You were so busy being ashamed of where you came from, you forgot to pay attention to where I ended up. I leaned back in his expensive chair. Now, about last night. You want to explain to me why you lied about Denver, why you told your family I had other plans on my birthday? Bradley put his head in his hands. Dad, it's complicated. Carolyn's birthday fell on the same day and her mother was in town, and I thought it would be easier. Easier to lie to your father than to include him? It wasn't like that. I was going to call you today, set up dinner this weekend. But you didn't call yesterday, did you? You lied, looked me right in the eye and made up some story about Denver. I stood up and walked to the window. You know what hurts most, Bradley? It's not being left out. It's that you thought I was too stupid or too unimportant to deserve the truth. The silence stretched between us like a canyon. Finally, Bradley spoke up. What do you want from me, Dad? I turned around and looked at my son. Still saw traces of that little boy who used to hand me nails and ask a million questions about everything. I want respect. I want honesty. And I want you to remember who raised you and why you're sitting in this fancy office in the first place. I pulled out another set of papers from my folder. These are loan documents for your mortgage. Turns out Vincent and I backed the construction loan for your neighborhood. We hold paper on about half the houses in your subdivision, including yours. Bradley's eyes went wide. You own my mortgage? Part of it. And these are contracts for 3 major developments your firm insures. Developments built by companies I have controlling interests in. You want to know how much of your success comes from connections you don't even know you have. I set the final document on his desk. This is a new trust agreement I had Eugene draw up. 60% of my assets go into an educational fund for Martha. 30% goes to veterans charities. The remaining 10% goes to you immediately. 10%. Dad, that's not enough, you're right. It's not enough to keep up your current lifestyle. But here's the thing, son. If you can prove to me over the next year that you understand what family means, what respect means, we'll revisit the arrangement. I started walking toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and one more thing. I'm having dinner with Eugene tonight at the VFW. You're invited. So are Carolyn and Martha. 7 p.m. sharp. Your choice whether you show up. The rest of the day, I couldn't concentrate on anything. I kept thinking about the look on Bradley's face when he realized how much his old man actually owned. Part of me felt bad about ambushing him like that. But mostly, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Power control. Respect. I got to the VFW early. Around 6:30. Eugene was already there, nursing a beer and talking with some of the other guys about the latest nonsense coming out of Washington. The VFW hall isn't much to look at: minus cinder block walls, fluorescent lights, American flag hanging over a small stage where we hold our monthly meetings. But it's our place, where guys like us can talk about things that matter. How'd it go with your boy? Eugene asked when I sat down, like dropping a bomb. I don't think he's ever going to look at me the same way again. That's the point, isn't it? Sometimes people need their world shaken up a little. I ordered a beer and checked my watch. 7 p.m. came and went. 7:15, 7:30. I was starting to think Bradley wasn't going to show when the door opened. Bradley walked in first, not in his usual expensive suit, but jeans and a polo shirt. Behind him came Carolyn, looking nervous, and Martha, who ran over and gave me a hug that nearly knocked me over. "Hi, Grandpa. Dad said you wanted to have dinner." "That's right, sweetheart." Figured it was time we all sat down together. Bradley pulled up a chair, his movements careful like he was walking through a minefield. "Dad, about yesterday and about everything else. I owe you an apology. Yes, you do. But apologies are just words. I'm more interested in what comes next." We ordered food from the VFW kitchen. Nothing fancy, just burgers and fries, and talked. Really talked, for the first time in years. Bradley asked about the business, about Vincent, about things he'd never shown interest in before. Carolyn seemed surprised to learn about my military service, about the buildings I owned, about the life I'd built. Martha was the one who finally asked the question I'd been waiting for. "Grandpa, why didn't you ever tell us about all this, about the buildings and the business?" "Because, sweetheart, I wanted your daddy to love me for being his father, not for what I owned. But somewhere along the way, he forgot that having an education and a fancy job doesn't make you better than the people who raised you." I looked at Bradley. "Your grandfather was a coal miner, died of black lung when I was 22. Never owned anything except his work boots and his pride. But he taught me that a man's worth isn't measured by what he has, it's measured by how he treats people, especially family." Bradley nodded slowly. "I've been an ass, haven't I?" "Yeah, son. You have, but the good news is it's not too late to fix it." Eugene joined us after finishing his conversation with the other vets. "So this is the famous son I've been hearing about," he said, extending his hand to Bradley. "Your father's told me a lot about you over the years. All good things until recently." Bradley shook his hand, looking uncomfortable. "I guess I've disappointed him. Disappointing someone and losing them are two different things." Eugene said, "Question is, what are you going to do about it?" Over the next hour, something shifted in that room. Bradley started asking real questions about the business, about how Vincent and I had built everything from nothing. He wanted to know about the construction projects, about the properties, about decisions we'd made over the years. "The thing is, Dad," Bradley said, "finally, I never knew any of this existed. You and Vincent, you kept everything so quiet. I thought you were just—"
"I don't know, getting by."
"We were private men," I said. "Vincent especially. He came from nothing too, grew up in a trailer park in Tucson. We both knew what it was like to be looked down on, so we never wanted to be the kind of people who flashed their money around." Martha had been quiet through most of the conversation, but now she spoke up. "Grandpa, what's going to happen with all the buildings and stuff? After you're gone?" I mean, it was a blunt question, the kind only teenagers ask, but it was the right question. "Well, sweetheart, that depends on your father. The trust agreement I showed him today isn't set in stone, it's a starting point. If he can prove he understands what family really means, things might change." Bradley leaned forward. "What would it take to prove that? I mean, I thought about it for a minute. Visit me every Sunday, not because you have to, but because you want to. Bring Martha when you can. Tell me about your work, about your problems, about your life. And when you introduce me to people, don't act like you're ashamed of where you came from. That's it. That's a lot, son. It means treating me like family instead of like an obligation. It means being honest with me even when the truth isn't convenient. And it means remembering that everything you have, everything you've achieved, started with the foundation your mother and I built for you." Bradley was quiet for a long moment. "Can I ask you something? The building where my office is, did you really not know I worked there?" I smiled. "Of course I knew. Vincent and I drove by there plenty of times when you first got the job. We were proud of you, son. We just wished you were proud of us too." That hit him hard. I could see it in his eyes, the realization of how many times he'd missed opportunities to include us, to acknowledge us, to simply be grateful for the sacrifices we'd made. "I want to try," he said finally, "to be better, to be the son you raised me to be. Then we'll see how it goes." 6 months later, I was sitting on my back patio with my morning coffee when Bradley's BMW pulled into the driveway. He comes by every Sunday now, sometimes with Carolyn and Martha, sometimes just the two of us. We work on projects around the house, talk about the properties, about his job, about life. Last month, he brought a client by to meet me. "This is my father," he said. Pride clear in his voice, he built half of Scottsdale. No shame, no embarrassment, just a son introducing his dad. Martha still comes by every Wednesday after school. I'm teaching her about business, about investments, about how to build something that lasts. That girl's got more sense about money than most adults I know. The education trust I set up for her is already earning good returns, thanks to some property investments Eugene and I made together. The other day, Bradley asked me about making changes to the trust agreement. "I've been thinking about what you said, Dad, about proving myself. Do you think?" Is there a chance you'd consider revising the terms? I looked at him, this man who's slowly becoming the son I always hoped he'd be. Ask me in 6 months, I said. We'll see where things stand. The truth is, I've already started making changes. Small ones, but changes nonetheless. Because sometimes people do learn, sometimes they do grow, sometimes they remember what really matters. At 68 years old, I learned something important. Family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, about honesty, about showing up when it matters. And sometimes when people forget that, you have to remind them who you are and what you're worth. Sometimes the old dog really does have new tricks after all. You never know how strong you are until you stop accepting less than you deserve, and sometimes teaching that lesson is the greatest gift you can give someone you love. Respect isn't inherited with DNA or earned through success. It's built through daily choices, honest words, and remembering that every achievement stands on someone else's foundation.